Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with my 2018 review for Oblivion. How is Oblivion aged in a world with Skyrim? Well, I've put dozens and dozens of hours into it, and now I'm here to answer that very question. It all begins for me with the extraordinary skill system in Oblivion that I missed oh so much, building your character a way where there were clear strengths and weaknesses to said build. It was nice to see as I invested time in a skill, I'd receive ranks like Apprentice, Journeyman, and so on, which allowed me special buffs that only a build like mine could attain. It made the character feel distinct and encouraged new builds, even if the combat isn't that great, where the stealth is busted, melee battles are usually a droll, and magic was downright freaking sweet with spell creation. I'm not going to knock the combat too hard, as I feel you can only expect so much from a first of its kind game back then. Same thing goes with the animation work in the game, whether it's the persuade/bribe system or the combat, they're also hilariously bad. Even Todd Howard has agreed to that, and it's almost expected when you play a game 12 years after its launch. However, dungeons haven't aged that well, but we have to remember the situation BGS was in. One person, yes, one person, was assigned to create every dungeon in the game, hence the repeating patterns of the dungeon design. A crater here, a tunnel here, the same old wall to scale over there. It becomes familiar within the first few hours, and obviously as you put more and more in, it doesn't let up. It makes exploration not feel like this unique venture, and as if every dungeon was copy and pasted, which in many ways it was. There were specific cells created that were just reused over and over. It was efficient usage of the assets provided for the development of this game, but at the same time, it did hinder the experience a little bit, especially all these years later. Quests are still as strong as when the game first launched, especially the faction quest lines like the Dark Brotherhood or the Mages Guild, which feature rich character dialogue and gripping stories. Shout out to the Dark Brotherhood, by the way. The twists and turns of that quest line are riveting enough to merit a new playthrough. The way Lucien Lachance greets you after your first murder, the Black Hand, the scaling in the ranks and how that all unfolds, and the unexpected fate of the guild, it is masterful. And also these quests can tie into some of these dungeons, so while some of the environments can get repetitive, if you tie in a little bit of a story there, especially the wonderful environmental storytelling of Bethesda Game Studios, some of them do feel a lot more unique. Speaking of guilds though, I do love how you join the mages or fighters guilds. As an example, you need to acquire recommendations from all of the major cities. Now while this may be cumbersome, I felt it brought a level of investment to decide to join one of these guilds, and that it just wasn't a walk-in. There's a level of player effort required across all quests in Oblivion. You have to actively seek folk out, ask for rumors, tap in on their issues, talk with them, and find it out that way. There aren't quest markers above their head, and very rarely does someone sprint up to you with a quest offer. I personally love this approach in games as a whole. It rolls the player into the world on a very different level instead of mindless waypoint chasing. Furthermore, it engages your character in the dialogue, which is one of the strongest parts about Oblivion, considering the writing is pretty solid, and it adds that feeling of discovery that sometimes the exploration, given the repetitive dungeons, is missing. Now, voice acting in old Bethesda Game Studios games is a very peculiar subject because the voice acting is good, but Oblivion suffers the issue that every BGS game up until Fallout 4 really had suffered, which is repeating voice actors. I met 3 characters in the same questline that all had the same voice. It can be hilarious and entirely distracting. While characters are well written, especially for the first fully voice acted Elder Scrolls games, it can remove some of the sparkle and shine from meeting these people when they all have the same voice, especially when they're within the same guild and one of them is a major character within that guild. Like I said, the individuality of this character is almost entirely stripped away upon hearing their voice, and then you just have to focus on the writing. But the best character to get to know in Oblivion is its world. It's peppered with locations to discover, and even now in 2018, it can be intimidating to try and explore all of Cyrodiil. As I said, the dungeons can repeat, but there are so many stories to discover, people to meet, and books to read that I couldn't help but be absorbed by its bizarre beauty. The strange Aelia dungeons, or innocently visiting a pub for a night's rest and discovering a murder has happened nearby and ending up becoming a detective and solving that. There's a dynamic nature to Oblivion that is quite not apparent in games of its time, and even to this day, it's fantastic how well it has aged in that regard. It stands the test of time as a true open world RPG, especially with the way you build your character. There certainly isn't choice and consequence, but for the scale it's on and for the epic adventure it brings, it certainly succeeds. I'm happy I spent some time going back to Oblivion. Admittedly, like I said, some stuff didn't age as well as others, but that's to be expected. Even when I wiped off my nostalgia goggles, Oblivion still just hits that right spot of a mixture of fun exploration, enjoyable character interaction, and a feeling that never lets up of, oh, just explore one more dungeon, just one more. Let me see what's in here, just one last one, and all of a sudden, it's 4 a.m. Anyway, that's just my 2018 review for Oblivion. Like I said, I try to do these every now and then so it allows me to go back and play old games I missed, but not sacrificing my YouTube content at the same time. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on Oblivion. Have you played it recently? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content we create here. Stay sexy, stay active, love you all, peace.